Good morning, everyone. Kevin here from Sky-Watcher, and welcome to another episode of the What's Up Webcast, where we take a look at everything from what's up in the nighttime sky to equipment to helpful tips and tricks on observing and imaging. And of course, at the end of the month, we have a special guest on to talk about their specialty in the field of astronomy. So it's the end of September. We're pretty much getting to the end of September. It is New Moon weekend, so hopefully you're going to be heading out and taking some awesome images to get your I don't know, totem patches. Make sure you're getting that M27 shot. We want to be able to see those awesome pictures. I have had some of these entries. I will let you know that some of the entries that some of you have sent are not meeting the criteria. The assignment was to get the wings of M27, not just M27s. So I'm just letting you know. That's what the rules were. So anyway, that's that. A couple announcements before we jump into today's episode. Let me pop over here. We are going to be talking about the ASI Air today. Now, I have an ASI Air Plus. The Pro version before this is also adequate for this conversation. I have not used the original ASI Air. I really don't know anything about it. I'm assuming it's somewhat the same, but this is really going to be going off of the Plus and the Pro models that have been out. A ton of customers use these on our mounts, and we thought it'd be cool to just do a workflow on how they work with a Sky-Watcher mount. I'm going to do my best to try and cover a lot of that information. So if you're new to ASI Air, I hope this is helpful for you. If I miss some things, because there are a lot of things that this little thing does, we'll try to cover it. I will do my best, but we're just going to kind of go over the initial setup of how these work. Now, real quick, before things get going, we are less than a month away from SOL, the Solar Observing Lab that's going to be happening here in Phoenix on October 22nd. You can go on and buy tickets to pre-register. That way you don't have to wait in line. You can buy those right here online. Just look for the red link at focusastro.org/sol. All the information is there. You can pre-register and RSVP for the talks, all right there. But we are under a month away now for this event. I know some of you will be coming. I look forward to meeting you in person. What I haven't told you about, kind of the last thing, because we're just putting the final details on it, is we're also doing a giveaway. And we have some of the prizes here. I've got some Optolong filters we're going to be giving away. These are from Spectrum Telescopes. Big thanks to them. We've got 12 nanometer CCD03, 1.25 visual H beta filters, 1.25 and 2-inch. Star Arizona has been kind enough to donate some books. This is the Backyard Astronomer's Guide, Volume 4. These are amazing. We have Night Watch being given away. This is all from Star Arizona for the books. Astronomy, really awesome stuff there. And if for kids, we have the Sun Book. So those are some cool things that'll be raffled off. Us here at Sky-Watcher, we're going to be giving away... Hold on, let me get my life in order. I'll get back to that later. We're going to be giving away Star Adventure 2i Pro Packs, 3 of them. Celestron's giving away a StarSense Explorer 130DX. And then we also have tickets to the Mount Lemmon Sky Center and tickets to Lowell Observatory. All kinds of fun stuff is going to be there, so we'll be giving away a lot of that. All the proceeds for that are going to be going to the Astronomy Association of Arizona, which is a local nonprofit that does outreach programs. So all kinds of stuff is going on there. Tickets will be purchased at the event, and you must be present to win, and you have to leave with your prize because we're not going to ship it. So, but we have a bunch of cool stuff there amongst everything else. So anyway, that's SOL, October 22nd. Hope to see you there. The rest of the Sky-Watcher team will be there as well, along with Lunt Solar Systems, Los Mondi, Mount Lemmon Sky Center, Daystar, Lowell Observatory, Star Arizona, Astronomy Association of Arizona, Stella, Astro Hutech, which will also be representing Player One, and of course the United States Space Force. All of that will be there. Hope to see you there. If you're looking for some Sky-Watcher swag, what am I doing? Hold on just a sec. There we go. here's the website. You've seen it before, but if you need to know more, just focus astro.org/Seoul. Go ahead and pre-purchase tickets if you don't want to wait in line. Anyway, that's Seoul. We're a month away from it. Hope to see you there. If you're looking for Sky-Watcher swag, we do have the threadless store there for all kinds of shirts. All kinds of fun stuff is up there. Go ahead and check that out. Now, one quick thing that's actually popped up this week is this picture, which actually is not a new picture. It's an amazing star trail picture taken by astronaut Don Pettit, who's a friend of ours. We've actually had him on the show before, and if for whatever reason you've been living under a rock and haven't watched that episode, you can go back and watch episode 42, where Don and I actually sit down and talk. Honestly, it's one of our best episodes. Some of the information that he gives is pretty awesome, but he talks about being on the ISS. He's flown several times, and he's about to go back up as well. So if you want to learn about the guy who shot this awesome shot on the ISS, go watch that video. What's Up Webcast episode 2 with astronaut Don Pettit. But anyway, that's going viral this week, so we thought we would share that. So anyway, now let's get back to business. The ASI Air. Now, if you don't know what an ASI Air is, it's one of these little red box. You've probably seen 1.5 million pictures of it online. Let me get my stuff here. There we go. Real quick, kind of jumping ahead. If you like what you see here on the What's Up Webcast, please go ahead and like and subscribe. If you have an episode idea, info@skywatcherusa.com. This episode is a request from someone a while ago. And it's if you have an idea, please email us at info@skywatcherusa.com and title it What's Up. So today we're going to be talking about the ASI Air and Sky-Watcher. It is one of the most popular ways to control our mounts nowadays. A lot of customers who are writing in are using the ASI Air equipment, so we thought we would get kind of a crash course on how it works on our products. Don't ask how it works on anybody else's stuff. It works on a large range of different mounts. But we're Sky-Watcher, not anybody else, so you'll have to go figure it out if it's on any other kind of mount. This only has to do with Sky-Watcher. So I'm going to do just a real quick overview. The ASI Air is basically a mini computer. For a long time, we've had to drag laptops out or PCs or whatever you're using to run our imaging equipment in the field. Even in the backyard, you would have had to drag out a laptop just a handful of years ago, which, are battery power hungry computers. So there's this big thing now coming out with these mini computers, whether they're Raspberry Pi based, like the original ASI Air and the ASI Air Pro, which was before this new Plus model. There's a variety of other companies who are doing mini computers, like the Prima Luce Eagles. Those are, I would say, a lot more advanced than what the ASI Air is, because it's a full PC machine, which gives you a lot more control over what you want to do. But they are quite a bit more expensive, but they're phenomenal machines. And then, of course, there's the ASI Air Plus, which is the current one, which if you're just in the field or you're a backyard imager, it took me a couple years because we bought one of these to try out and see what all the rage was. It took me a while to get around to using it. Oh my God. Yeah, the first time I went out and used it, I was completely blown away with what these dumb little things do. They are definitely worth the money. We actually have 2 of them at Sky-Watcher that myself and Jared, our marketing specialist, uses, and they're so nice to use. So they pretty much do everything that you're going to need in an imaging system. It gives you mount control, camera control, focuser control, filter wheel control, handles all the guiding and automation, power control of accessories, and it's all done, control-wise, it's all done via their app, the ASI Air app, which is available on iOS and Android. It's very well executed. It's surprising. Now, the one, I wouldn't say downfall of this, it's actually kind of ingenious how ASI or ZWO has actually done this, but it's limited to the ZWO family of products. They basically built an ecosystem that completely jives with each other. So their cameras, their focuser, their filter wheel. I know they have their new AM5 mount out, which I have yet to use or even see one in person. All of this ecosystem, there's no better way to really say it, but they've worked very hard to make this ecosystem of products that works super well with one another. And it really takes the guesswork out of, drivers and plugging stuff in, and I need this software and I need that software. It's very plug and play. It's amazing how well executed this actually is, and it makes imaging or live stack or whatever you're actually doing, anything astrophotography related, it really makes it easier than ever before. And it's not this big power hungry laptop anymore. So it does all kinds of cool stuff. It does control DSLRs as well. I have not done it. I heard it's a little different, but I have not actually used it on any of the Canon DSLRs or Nikons and stuff like that. But if you're running ZWO products, like their ASI cameras, it's amazing how well this is actually engineered and put together. It's really nice to just not have to deal with all this extra crap. I can't tell you how many times we get people calling us up. It's like, hey, how does your mount work with this software? Hey, how do I get it to work with PHD2? Whatever. This little thing is very much plug and play and just makes imaging so much easier. And what it allows you to do with our mounts, and probably any mount for most part, but with our mounts, is amazing. You can automate, it just does everything. It's 10 years ago, if someone said I could have all of this for $300, that's ridiculous. But it's here, and it's making imaging easy, which is what people want to do. So let me talk to you about a little bit about ASI Air and SynScan and how this all works together. I'm going to try and explain this as best I can. I'm still a fairly new user to ASI Airs. I've been using it for about a year now. I have a good understanding of all that it does, but they're always adding new features. And I'm sure there are people out in this who are watching this that are much more well-versed in this than I am. So, go easy on me. The best way to do ASI Air is actually the connection is done through EQ mod, which is kind of like this third-party connection that has been used on SynScan for years. Now, EQ mod usually requires a cable to make the connection. So you would remove the hand controller from our mounts. You would plug an EQ mod cable into the hand controller port and then route the other end, which is a USB, up to the ASI Air. That's how the connection is made to the mount. A lot of our new mounts do have USB plug on them, a USB-B, and for a while the ASI Air was working fine with that system, and I don't know if it's been addressed, but a while ago a chipset was changed on our motor boards, particularly the MC15 board, which runs the AZ EQ6, the EQ6R, and both versions of the EQ8R. That board had a chipset change, and the drivers to make that work had not yet been incorporated into the ASI Air. So that meant the USB plug on those mounts was not compatible with the ASI Air. I don't know if ZWO has addressed that with an update, but I find that the serial connection on an EQ mod cable that plugs into the hand controller is the best and most secure way to make the connection to your mount using an ASI Air. That's what I would recommend above all other connections if you're using a Sky-Watcher equatorial mount, is just go get an EQ mod cable and plug it into the hand controller port. I'm sure someone's going to argue with me on that. That's what I find the best connection is. Now, once you've made the connection to the mount, you can start working on all your other stuff. The camera, the focuser, the guider, and the filter wheel all route to the ASI Air computer. And the ASI normally rides up top on your telescope somewhere. When you get one, like the Plus models, they come with this little finder bracket shoe, and that usually slides onto your finder bracket, or it has quarter 20 screws so you can mount it you can mount it pretty much anywhere you want onto your telescope, wherever it fits. So pop it on there. Now, one of the nice things that the ASI Air does, because it sits up on the mount, is it reduces cable drag, which can cause guiding errors and cables to get snagged. And it improves cable management. So rather than you having all these cables and looking like a flying spaghetti monster on your mount, all your cables can be nice and conveniently routed up to the ASI Air. They're not just hanging off of your telescope waiting to get caught. This is very important because the ASI Air also has the ability to automate your system. So you can set up a whole sequence through the evening where it does the meridian flip and reacquires guiding, which I think is amazing. But when you trust your system to an automated run and you're going to go to sleep or you're not going to be there and you're going to trust your equipment, you need to make sure your cables are managed so they're not going to get snagged on anything. Sky-Watcher having a remote observatory where no one is there most of the time, that is a big deal, that you want to make sure your cables are nice and neat and managed so nothing's going to get caught on adjustment bolt or the tripod or the counterweight bar or whatever, especially when you're going to be doing meridian flips or pointing to various objects around. Let's see. There's some question here. Does this work on your SynScan Dobbs? You know what? I'm not sure. I've never tested it. I think ASI Air is really intended for equatorial mounts, but I don't know for certain. I've never tested it and no one has ever told me. So the EQ mod cable is better than the USB connection on the EQ6. I would recommend serial. I hate USB connections. USBs always find a way to come loose or they lose connection. If it were me, everything would be an Ethernet serial connection because it just clicks and locks in. Serial connections are so much better than USB connections. So I would always recommend using the ASI Air with an EQ mod cable on arm mounts. I feel like it's much more secure and less problematic over time. And it's a very small investment. Those cables are like $20. So that's what I would recommend. But some people are using the USBs, but I like the serial connection. Can I use an ASI Air to control the AZ GTI in Alt-Az mode, including auto guiding? I don't believe so. You can't really effectively guide in an Alt-Az mount with auto guiding. It probably is going to mess some stuff up, but you could try it, but I don't know. I've never used an ASI Air in Alt-Az formats. It's always been with the equatorial mounts. So that, again, this is just my findings on what I've done using one of these. I'm sure your mileage may vary. Now, power on the ASI Air, which is another very cool thing about these devices, is it powers everything. It powers your camera, your filter wheel, but I would not power it. I would not power the mount with one of these. There's just not enough amperage that runs through these. This happens a lot on the power boxes that are out there. There's a lot of people who just want to run everything off of one power supply. I understand that it's simplistic. But what I find is a lot of these little devices do not have enough power throughput to really allow you to run everything. Like an EQ6R requires 3 to 4 amps to run. 12 volt, 3 to 4 amps. You're going to suck up the capability of an ASI Air very, very quickly with that power supply. It's just made to run the cameras, and even some of their cameras like the 2600 and 6200 cameras are power hungry when you turn that cooler on. So the Plus model is really better intended for those heavier duty cameras, where the Pro model I think was having some issues with the 6200 and 2600s as far as dealing with the larger files and stuff like that. I might be wrong, but the Plus is made to work better with some of those more power-hungry mounts. But there's just not enough throughput on these little boxes to run the mount. you will starve that mount. If you're running a 3 to 4 amp requirement, like a EQ6R or an EQ8R, maybe some of the lighter mounts you could get away with, the ones that only require about 2 amps. I would always run the mount on its own power supply and then run the rest of your imaging rig on another. That's just my recommendation. Workflows. So here's how we set this up. So first thing you're gonna do is set up your imaging rig normally. You know, put your telescope on there, put all your goodies on there, with whether it's a guide camera or an OAG. Get your filter wheel, your camera, all your back focus set up. Put everything on there, just like you're setting everything up normally. You're going to want to mount your ASI Air wherever that's going to go. You can see my friend Alex, my coworker Alex. This is his setup right here. He's got his ASI Air on a dovetail plate up top there, just behind the guider. That's where he mounts it. You could mount it on the finder shoe if you want to. Wherever it's going to mount, put your ASI Air up there and mount all your accessories. Maybe you're running an ASI Air guider, the EAF focuser, the filter wheel, the camera, whatever it is. Pop everything on there, balance your rig just like normal. Once you have everything hooked up, I'm going to do a workflow here in a little bit. There's some questions that are popping up. I'll get to that when I can, if I can answer that effectively. Like I said, there's a lot of information on these, and a lot of you probably play a lot more with this than I do. So just a heads up. Okay, mount your ASI Air and your ASI Air accessories. First, we have our camera. So the camera has its main USB. This is what plugs into the back. It's usually a 3.0 cable that has a short run. So the ASI Air and the camera are going to plug direct. So the main USB, the 3.0 cable, is going to plug to the back of the camera and route up to one of the 3.0 ports on the back of the ASI Air, which is one of these blue ones. Your camera's going to plug in there. And that camera cable is going to basically be your main cable to handle various accessories up to the ASI Air. That way you're not routing everything up to the ASI Air, because most of the ZWO cooled cameras have a hub in the back. A good majority of your accessories can plug into the back of your camera and then have one umbilical going all the way up to the ASI Air. So you're also going to route your camera power up to the ASI Air. You can, if you want, you can also run the camera off of its own power supply if you want to, or you can route it off of one of the power ports that are on the ASI Air. It does have 4 2.1 volt power ports. These are all controllable too, which is very nice. You can turn them on and off if you have issues. But I usually route my camera up to the ASI Air for its power. So right now, I'm going to show a graph of this in a minute. We'll go over it in a better graphic. But you have the main USB from the camera running to the ASI Air, and you have a power cable running from your camera to the ASI Air. Now, if you're doing monochrome imaging, you probably have a filter wheel. The filter wheel runs off of one single USB. I usually find that it's best to just route that USB to the back of the main imaging camera. Just plug it into one of the ports on the back. So that's where your filter wheel runs into. The EAF focuser, the motor focuser that they make, you can connect that either direct to the ASI Air, or you can run it back to the camera hub, one of the other accessories that can plug into the hub there as well. The guide camera, usually the guide camera I find is sitting closer to the ASI Air computer, so I usually route the USB from the guide camera direct to the ASI Air, or you can run it to the back of the camera. The nice thing that the hub on the back of the camera allows is, rather than routing, your focuser, your guider, and the filter wheels, USBs all up to the ASI Air, you could actually plug them all into the back of your main camera and then just have one nice USB going up to the ASI Air if you need to. And then finally, we have the mount. Again, I use EQ mod cable. That's my big recommendation. That one I route up to the ASI Air directly. Continued here. Power on the ASI Air, it's it has its own power supply. It's 12 volt. I usually, if you're at home, you can use a AC power adapter brick that I don't think these come with them. I think you have to buy them separately. But I usually plug that in, or you can run it off of its own battery. I like to run my imaging rig off of its own power supply. So the ASI Air power routing is controlling guide camera, main camera, filter wheel, and the EAF. All of that is run off of the ASI Air and whatever its power supply is. And then the mount I run off of its own power supply. That's how I do it. I'm sure others do. Next, you're going to want to make sure all those cables are tethered down and anchored so they're not going to get caught anywhere. So because the ASI Air can do automated imaging runs, we want to make sure nothing's going to get snagged, especially during the imaging run. So here's my little graphic here. This is my workflow on how I set up my ASI Air. Hopefully this makes it easy. So you have the ASI Air on the mount. We're then going to hook up our camera. The USB and the power from our camera are going to plug direct to the ASI Air. Next is our guider. Our guide camera USB is going to plug into the back of the main camera. You could route it to the ASI Air depending on the camera position and where the computer sits. But I usually route my USB to the back of the camera, the main imaging camera. Next, the ASI Air filter wheel. If you're doing monochrome imaging, maybe you've got a one-shot color using some of these narrowband filters. I usually route the EFW. It's too many freaking abbreviations with these things. The filter wheel, I plug into the back of the USB on the camera as well. So that means your guider, your main camera, and USB are all running one main USB back to the Air. Nice and clean, only one cable to the computer, all the other accessories route to the main camera. Now the EAF, depending on its position, you could route that to the back camera, the main camera if you wanted, or you could route it to the Air, depending on the position. Mine usually rides right next to the focuser on the finder brackets. So I usually just pop the EAF focuser motor up to the ASI Air because it's right there rather than racking that all the way back to the camera. I just route it up to the Air. Now, you could also power the focuser from the ASI Air if you need to. The older model of the EAF had the 12 volt model had a USB and a power cord. The new models, the 5 volt models, only have a single USB, so it reduces by one cable. Which is actually really nice. It's one less thing you have to worry about. So we have an EAF that it's a 5 volt model. So it's one USB into the ASI Air. That's how we have it hooked up, depending on your model. Then lastly, we have the mount. The mount, I have an EQ mod cable plugged into the hand controller port, and then the other end, which is USB, plugs into the ASI Air. That's how I have my workflow. And then the power for the mount is on its own power supply, and then I run the ASI Air off of its own power supply. So that's how I set mine up. Again, we have the ASI Air, and so from left to right, we have our main camera on the back of the telescope. If it's monochrome, we've got our filter wheel. The USB from the filter wheel plugs to the camera. The guider plugs to the main camera. And all of that is then tethered to the ASI Air via the power cable from our main imaging camera and the USB from the main imaging camera. So there's only one USB cord coming from the whole back imaging train. The focuser then has its own USB, and then the mount has its own cable plugging in. So there should be a total of 4 cables handling all of your accessories. So USB for focuser, USB for camera, power from camera, and EQ mod. That's a lot going on, but that's how I set mine up. It tends to work out really nicely, and it's always worked for me. So hopefully this little chart helps. There's a bunch of questions I'm going to try to get to because there's a lot of slides in this one, and I want to make sure we have time. So here's probably what I would recommend workflow-wise for how to set this up for Sky-Watcher. That was the hardwired setup. This is how you actually use it. I know there's some friends of mine that are probably watching today that want to know this information. So get your ASI Air. It's probably mounted. Make sure everything's plugged in. Once this is all mounted onto your telescope, you're going to turn on the power switch. It's going to take a few seconds, but your ASI Air will beep when it's ready to connect and the Wi-Fi is ready to go. Usually you're going to have your power and then the Wi-Fi light will be on. If your Wi-Fi light's being weird, you can hit the reset button. But when you flip the power switch, give it a few seconds, it'll beep saying it's ready to go. Once it's ready to go, go into your device, whether it's an Android phone or tablet or iPad or iPhone. Go into your Wi-Fi settings, and you should find there is an ASI Air Wi-Fi signal. You want to go ahead and connect to that. These are locked Wi-Fi signals. You are going to need a password. The password is always on the bottom serial, at least for the Plus model. I don't remember how it was on the Pro, but it's on the back here. It's a pretty standard thing. You could probably change it too, but when you get them, it's very basic. But everything you need to know is right here for connecting. So connect to that. If it's the first time doing it, just type in the password that's on the ASI Air, and it should give you a check mark or let you know that you are connected. There is no internet on this, by the way. So now the range on this little guy is not terribly great. It's better than the older ones, but if you're just imaging in the field, it's okay. What I really like about these is the Ethernet port right here on the back. If you really want to, like if you want to set up outside and then you want to image remotely from inside the house, what I've done is I've actually routed I have a really long, like 100-foot Ethernet cable that I actually plug into my internet in the house, the routers in the house. And then that will extend the range because you can actually hook up to this and it routes through your home Wi-Fi at that point. So that way you can image from the house and your telescope's outside and you're not just connecting to the Wi-Fi on this. So you can actually connect it to your Ethernet in the house and locks on real quick. I'm not a big fan of freezing my butt off during or getting eaten alive by bugs. I like to image remotely from in the house. This little guy, once you plug it into the Ethernet, is a big deal. So anyway, so you're going to connect to your internet or the Wi-Fi signal from the device and connect. Once connected, the ASI Air app on your phone or your device, you're going to plug that into... I'm sorry, there's too many questions here. Let me just route through these really quick. Let's see. Would a Pegasus power box be a better solution? Never used one. They're not really the same thing. It's just a power box to help route things. You want to be careful with the power boxes of any kind. Make sure you're really paying attention to how much power is being routed through there. If you start daisy chaining too many things, you're going to eventually run into issues. I've had people damage their mounts before with power boxes. I don't like running the mount off of anything other than the mount's own power supply. I can't tell you how many times we have had to change motor boards out because people have fried their motor board not paying attention to the power. Sky-Watcher mounts do not like to be underpowered. You can damage your motor board if there's not enough power. They starve themselves that way. A little bit more juice is okay. As long as you're within the limits, you're fine. But if it starts starving itself, you can damage your motor boards. So I like to just run the mount on its own power supply and then use an ASI Air or a power box or whatever the heck you're using to run everything else. But I can't tell you enough. Please don't run the mount off of power boxes. Just run it off of its own power supply because I've had time and time again people damage motor boards on them. When doing a polar alignment with an ASI Air Plus at step 2, the mount auto-rotates 60 degrees as expected, but the ASI Air Plus still says 0 and process can't continue. Is it a bug? I don't know. That's a ZWO question. Can this thing do multi-star polar alignment like Nina's Beta? No idea. I've never used Nina. I'm coming off of SkyX. I know a lot of people who are using the polar alignment on ASI Air, and they seem to do just fine, or you can use a PolMaster. Whatever you want to do. There's multiple ways to do polar alignment. I use the polar scope and then dial it in there. with this, and it works fine. Is imaging workflow from the ASI Air better than Nina? I love using Nina, but always looking to reduce weight cords. Nina is very impressive. I've had some coworkers show me how Nina works. It's awesome, but I don't know enough about Nina to really say what it's like. I know you can route a ton of stuff through Nina, but I've never done it personally. The ASI Air is just a very clean, versatile thing for field work. Your mileage may vary. I know a lot of people like Nina. I cannot tell you anything about Nina because I've never used it. I've just seen how it's put together, and it looks impressive, but I've never sat down and used it. GPS, does ASI Air accept the input from USB GPS mouse? No. It's going to pull your GPS location from your device. So if you're using a phone, usually it inputs that. If you're using a tablet, unless your tablet has, LTE or 5G, it's going to pull from your GPS location that way, or you're going to have to enter it manually. But as far as I know, there's no external GPS for it. You have to put it in yourself, or it's going to pull from your device. What do you use to plug multiple USBs into the ASI What you use to plug multiple USBs into the ASI camera hub? The cameras on ASI Airs, the cooled ones. I'm sorry, the cooled cameras from ZWO have 4 USB ports on the back. That should be more than enough to plug in a filter wheel, the focuser, a guider. Unless you're plugging more stuff in there, you really only need 3 ports for USBs. If you're plugging more in there, I don't know, you could route stuff up to the ASI Air, but yeah, you'll have to work with it there. Okay, that brings me up to the question. So anyway, we're going to connect to the Wi-Fi. Once you've connected to the Wi-Fi, go to the ASI Air app on your device and open it. Once you open the app, it's very good. If you're brand new to it, it's very good at telling you what to do. If you're using a mobile device like a phone, it's going to put your date, latitude, longitude, which I will not tell you mine. It's going to pop all that information in there automatically from your device, as long as your device has set, your device is allowing it to pull its location. If it's not, you may have to go into your settings and allow the ASI Air app to pull your location. Otherwise, you can enter it manually. Once that's all filled out, we have to go to the next. That's all right here. Once all of your information is plugged in, you're going to go over to the other side here, and you're going to start plugging in your equipment. First thing's going to be the mount. Now, for Sky-Watcher, we need to use the EQ mod mount. So you're going to click on the drop-down menu right here. And then in that menu, it's going to pop down. And you're just going to scroll through it until you find EQ mod. And there you go. So select that, and then that should pop that up into there. Now that the mount, we know what mount we're using. That's going to be for all the Sky-Watcher mounts. You want to use the EQ mod selection right there. So you're going to go ahead and select that. It'll be green that you know it's selected. Select it, and it'll pop it up into there. The next thing we're going to do is we have to plug in the focal length of our camera, of our main telescope and our guide telescope if we're using a guider. So on this particular one, we're using an Esprit 100 and a Evo Guide 50 ED. So our main telescope is 550 millimeters, and our guider is going to be 242 millimeters. Once that's done, you're going to pick your main camera. Usually when you plug in a ZWO camera, it's going to know what cameras are plugged into it. It'll usually register, like if you're using a 294, it'll pop 294 in there, or 2600. Or if you have multiple cameras, it will show you what cameras it's recognizing. Go ahead and select what your main camera is. Let's say we're using a 533, and it sees it. Go ahead and select it as your main camera. You're going to do the same thing with your guide camera. You're going to go in there and find whatever your ZWO guide camera is going to be. Maybe it's a 224, maybe it's a 120, maybe it's a 174, whatever. Go ahead and select that as your guide camera. And then the other devices, if you're using an EAF or an EFW filter wheel, go ahead and select those, and that'll pop all that information in there so it knows what you're doing. Once you're done there, you're going to go ahead and hit enter. Once you hit enter from the main home screen and setting up your gear, we're going to go to the main workflow screen. This is the ZWO ASI Air main workflow screen. There's all kinds of buttons that are around here, and I'm just going to give you an overlay of what that looks like. First one's going to be your Wi-Fi signals and all of your main controls. You click this one. Here's the main screen for that. It's going to show you the power. It's going to show you the temp, the voltage, all what's going on, whatever your power settings are. And then it's also going to have all of your power switches for all the 12-volt power supplies. Now, what I like about this is it has the ability to turn all 4 of these on and off. So if you're having issues with something, maybe your filter wheel's being stupid or whatever's going on, something's not playing right, you can cycle the power remotely. That really helps solve issues. We have to do that on our remote system sometimes with our Eagle. The ability to power cycle remotely through the app is awesome, but it's going to tell you how much power is being used. You only have, let's see, what does this say? You only have 3 amps to work with on these. There's not a lot of amperage going on here. That's something you need to make sure is there's not a lot of power going on in here. You can hit 3 amps really quick. 3 amps is too much, is not enough power for an EQ6R. It's usually recommended to have 4 amps. And these also all default to off. So if you have a brand new ASI Air and you're plugging your camera into this and powering it on and it's not working, these default to off. So you need to make sure which one your camera's plugged into or whatever the accessory is and turn them on. And that's under the Wi-Fi signal there. It also has all your other controls and stuff like that. Next one's going to be our camera setting. You know, we go into there. This is where it tells you everything you need to know. There's, like on this one, you can turn your camera on and off. You can switch the main camera. When you plate solve, it's going to tell you what your focal length of the telescope is going to be. You can adjust the gain in here. I always leave my gain at 0. Unity gain. I don't touch my camera's gains. I'm used to using CCDs where gain is not even a thing. They're preset. I don't touch it. You can do whatever you want, but I leave mine at 0. Cooling, you can adjust on the cameras as well. I always run my cameras at -10. That's just what I run it at. So that's all the camera settings right there that you can mess with, and that's under the camera tab. Next one is going to be guiding. So we click that. It opens up the guide. It's the same thing. This is where you set up everything. Right here, we're using a ZWO ASI 120 Mini Mono. Our guide scope is an ASI, or is a EvoLux 50. Evo Guide 50. Too many things. That's 242 millimeters. You can set your gain and then binning and whatever you want to do. I don't mess with any of this down here. My guiders, at times I do set 2x2 binning. Just depends on what's going on. I don't mess with anything. I just select it, put it in. I don't calibration, step size, duration, all that. I don't mess with any of that. Just plug it in and hit connect and make sure the focal length is correct so it guides right. When you're ready to guide, this is what the screen looks like. It looks a lot like PHD2, doesn't it? Because that's pretty much what it is. Now on this screen, you've got a couple buttons in there too. You've got the calibration, and it will calibrate on its. You hit that and it starts calibrating. This is your exposure, where it just starts taking pictures, which you can actually adjust the exposure down here in the bottom right, 1 second, 2 second. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. This is your start guiding button, your stop guiding button, and then, like I said earlier, your exposure buttons. I don't mess with any of the settings on guiding. I just hit calibrate, and I let the mount do what it needs to do and lock on. They have added the multi-star guiding, which you see here, which is kind of nice. That's all I do. I would not recommend getting fancy with any of this. You can adjust aggression if you need to. A lot of people start messing with things in PHD2. Just stop. Like, don't screw around with things. I cannot tell you how many people have called being like, my graph looks all crazy. It's like, what's your number? Right here, we're looking at under 1 arc second. phenomenal. Most of our imaging setups will not resolve anything below 1. And you're seeing in your backyard most certainly will not resolve below 1. There's very few locations where you're going to be able to resolve under 1. Don't dig too deep into your guiding. If the stars look good, enjoy the imaging run. Don't worry about the graph. We're not here to look at graphs. We're looking at images and stars. Don't worry about the graph. Unless there's problems in your picture, don't worry about the graph. I cannot stress that enough. So please stop calling us about your graphs. Unless there's problems in your image, then we have something to talk about. But the next one, this is our telescope setup. This is where you can control all your connections. There's EQ mod. There's the baud rate. Normally for Sky-Watcher mounts, baud rate's going to be set to about 9600. Go this way, sir. Sorry, guys. Little kids at home are always fun. And they're sick, which is always fun too. You're okay, sir. 2-year-olds at home. So I should have locked the door. I knew better than that. Anyway, that was my son Aiden. He's 2. Ignore him. So he's fine. So you want to set it to EQ mod. Baud rate's usually 9600. Usually if we're connected, it's serial connections. You can do all kinds of stuff. It just gives you all that. You can sync up your phone and everything. Yeah, there's all that. EQ mod, baud rate. If you are using USB, sometimes you might need a higher baud rate. We usually find that 115,200 is generally a good place there. But the baud rate usually defaults to 9600. That's usually fine. Serial connections. Hold on just a second before I'm busted on a little kid. That's why we locked the door to the office, so they don't plow through here. Anyway, sorry guys. So then after all this is done, you're going to go ahead and hit sync, and it's all nice and synced up and ready to go. Trying to get through this. There's a lot of stuff in here. This is our filter wheel button up here. I don't have a filter wheel currently to show you. You can go in there. You can set up your filter positions and all that fun stuff. There's the EAF button. That's if you're using the EAF motor focusers. You go in there and set that up. This is your memory. There is a very, very tiny memory. Well, you can put it in there. I don't have one in there. You can put memory. There's flash memory inside these. But you can go in and select and pull the memory cards out if you want. Or I like to use a USB stick. I actually plug a USB, like a flash drive or something like that. I'll plug that in there and just route all my images to there. Under this eMMC, you can route all your file savings either to the internal memory, or you can move it over to the memory stick or hard drive or whatever you're doing in there. Preview. This is what it defaults to. Preview is what you've got to see your images come up. But if you press this, because it's yellow, you're going to pop out these selection menus. This is where you can switch through all kinds of stuff. You want to go to focus mode, you can hit focus. There's polar align, preview, auto run, plan, live, and video. There's all kinds of stuff in here. Usually you're going to do preview, focus, polar align, and the auto run is where you program all of that. But that's all in there. Binning, if you're going to be binning your camera, you can hit the bin button, and that's going to bin 1x1, 2x2, 3x3, whatever the heck you want to do. You can do all the binning on there via that button. The little arrow button here, you're going to go ahead and click that. That's going to pop out the control menus. You have your arrows. This is like your hand controller. But if you want to go to a target, you can actually go to the search window. This is really cool, what I like about ASI Air. Click the search, and it takes you to the screen. It's going to give you a selection on all types of different objects that are up. It's going to organize them. Right now it's the NGC menu. You can search all kinds of things, and it actually tells you when it rises and sets. It's really well done on this. You can go through the Mezier's, ICs, Sharpless. There's all kinds of stuff in there. You can search it, or you can go to the drop-down menus and pop that out. And then there's all of it. You got tonight's best, name stars, planets, comets, Messier. It's got tons of stuff in here. You will be busy for a while with this. Going back to the main screen, you have exposure. That's where you can click it and you can say, I want 60 seconds. I want 120 seconds, whatever. You have your histogram. You click on that, it'll show you the histogram of the image. If you click the guide button here, it'll show you your guiding. Plate solving. I love plate solving. The fact that it just slews to a target, takes a picture, registers the star field, and solves it. Go ahead and check that out. This is your exposure button over here. If you want to hit an exposure, just hit that button, just like taking a picture on your phone. Lastly, over here is the planetarium software. This is a new addition. So if you don't have this planetarium section down here, make sure you update to the latest builds. That is the planetarium one. This is on the Plus model. I don't know how it works on the other stuff, but this is Sky Atlas. Very, very cool thing they've recently added. You go ahead and click that, and then it brings you up to this window right here. Holy cow. Okay. And you can actually select everything with the Sky Atlas. So it's just a planetarium. It's a new thing within the last year that they've added. It was kind of experimental, but it has been added. So, yeah, that's kind of I know we just plowed through that. If you have any questions, because that's the end of it right there, there's a lot of stuff that we can go over that. You can use the planetarium thing for go-to. You can actually scroll around with your finger or search and then select what you want and hit go-to. Or center, or whatever you want to do, and your telescope will slew over there, plate solve, and center up. It's pretty cool. But that's within the last year, I think they've added that. So anyway, if you have questions now, I'm going to try to go through them real quick. That was a lot of information. Hopefully it's been helpful for Sky-Watcher on what that was. But anyway, there's that. So that was using ASI Air. Next week, we're going to have our friend Rachel Freed on. Rachel Freed's the president of the Institute for Student Astronomical Research, or INSTAR. Rachel does so much stuff. It's amazing what Rachel does. But she's really trying to get students to interact on a scientific level for astronomy. So we'll be talking to her next week. If you have any questions on What's Up Webcast, please like and subscribe a video. We really appreciate it. But yeah, that was the ASI Air video, and now there's a bunch of questions. So let me get to that. Blah, blah, blah. We talked about all these. Alex's rig. What's the blue cable you had running from the camera to the ASI Air? Was that a special cable, or was it just blue? I think it was just blue. It's probably just a USB 3 cable. Running from the camera's USB 3 port to the back of the ASI Air. He probably just has a blue USB just to show what the main cable of the camera is, which is not a bad idea. If you want to know what cable is what, especially when you have a lot of them, bound together, you're probably going to want to color code them or whatever. So that way you know which cable is which. So Alex has a blue cable, to know that the blue cable means that is the main hub between the camera and his whole imaging train and the ASI Air. So probably not a bad way to do it, or maybe do like a zip tie or something to do there. Why EQ mod mount and not Sky-Watcher? For the USB. Well, the reason why we started recommending EQ mod cables is because the ASI Air did not have the correct drivers to use the new chipset on the USB boards for the EQ6R. It was actually an issue for a while. I don't know if ZWO has put those drivers into the new builds and if it's been fixed, but I don't know. So we recommended EQ mod cables for a while. That's what I use. I don't like using USBs. USBs get loose over time and they're just not super secure. So I would much rather have a serial connection because it clicks in, it's not going anywhere. So I like the EQ mod cables because they're a lot more secure. That's why I use them. Will you guys do a webcast on an Eagle? Yeah, we could do an Eagle webcast. The Eagles are what we use on our remote telescopes at Skyway Remote. We have an Eagle 3 and an Eagle 4 out there. But yeah, we could go through Eagles if you want an episode on Eagles. Probably wouldn't be until next year at this point because the rest of the year is pretty much planned. But if you want an episode on Prima Luce Eagles like this, sure, we can look into doing that. We'll make a note. Let's see. What is the Starfield thing at the... Oh, yeah. Starfield thing at the lower left. That's the new planetarium thing. So, yeah, you just have to download that at this point. If you don't have it on your ASI Air, you're going to have to basically update it. And updating just takes a little bit of time. So yeah, that's pretty much the ASI Air. They're like $300. Like if you're using ZWO cameras, they're so worth it, personally. And if you're imaging in your backyard or the field and you're using ZWO hardware, they're very much worth it. Now I understand if you're not using ZWO cameras like QHY, FLI, SBIG, Starlight Express, anybody else, you're kind of SOL at that point. You can't use ASI Air on anything else except ZWO cameras and the exception of a DSLR or mirrorless camera from like Canon. So it's very cool if you're in the ZWO ecosystem. If you're out of it, you just kind of have to figure it out. That's where something like an Eagle comes in handy or whatever. But there's other ways to go about that. But if you are in the ZWO ecosystem, the ASI Air is highly recommended. We have hundreds and hundreds of customers using them. It's probably one of the easiest, most streamlined ways to do imaging nowadays. And they're not super spendy. And it's just very well done. So if you're looking to get into imaging and you're kind of doing it on a budget and you're going to be in the field, I would highly recommend one of these. The Pro models are nice. The current production ones, the Plus, are very nice. I have no complaints on these. But they have their limitations if you want to use other brands of cameras. But that's just how it is. So kudos to ZWO for locking in like that. Let's see what else. Very cool fish tank. Thanks. Yeah, it's a 130-gallon water box aquarium. Highly recommend water box aquariums. So if you're looking to get something, it's a pain to move though. God help me when I have to move. So it takes 4 people to move it. So your watcher list is going up since I started with you guys. Yes, we are climbing up. We're getting close to 10,000 subscribers. So thanks for all of you hanging out with us. Let's see. I think that's it. And right on time. So thanks for watching. I hope this episode was helpful to all of you guys here. For anybody watching in the future, I hope this is also helpful for connecting your ASI Air to our products. Please, stupid camera. There we go. Please enjoy your new moon weekend. Go out, do some observing. If you just happen to be in Tucson, we will be at the Oracle State Park Dark Sky Festival this weekend. Actually leaving right after this. So come out and enjoy that. It's not too late to get your totem patches. Please, we've got some really nice images coming in too. Get out there, do that. And then, yeah, come see us at Seoul next month. So have a great weekend, guys. Clear skies to everyone, and thanks for hanging out with us and learning all about the ASI Air and Sky-Watcher products. So see you later. Stay safe. Clear skies. Talk to you later. Bye.